Escaping a sandstorm, she entered his shelter and discovered humans weren't extinct after all. The soft hum of Nera's ancestral staff was the only sound accompanying her labored breathing as she trudged across the endless dunes. Her once pristine golden outfit designed for the lush forests of her home world now clung to her blue skin coated with a fine layer of sand that seemed to find its way into every crease and fold. 3 days since she had emerged from the portal, disoriented and terrified. 3 days since she'd watched her world burn, her people slaughtered by the merciless Krivak forces that had descended without warning upon her peaceful planet. Keep moving, she whispered to herself, her melodic voice cracking from thirst. Just keep moving. The twin suns of this desert world beat down relentlessly, turning the horizon into a shimmering mirage. Nera's silvery white hair, once her pride and joy, now hung in matted strands around her face. She tied most of it back with a strip torn from her sleeve, but several stubborn locks still whipped across her vision with each gust of wind. Those gusts were growing stronger. Nara paused, planting her staff in the sand to steady herself as she gazed toward the western horizon. Her heart sank. A massive wall of swirling sand was approaching, a sandstorm unlike any she'd seen before, even in the ancient texts of her people. No, she breathed, panic rising in her chest. Not now. She spun around desperately, searching for shelter. The flat expanse of dunes offered nothing but more sand in every direction except for a small, dark smudge to the north. Squinting, she could just make out what appeared to be a rock formation, perhaps 4 miles away. It was her only hope. Gripping her staff tightly, Nera began to run, her legs burning with the effort of pushing through the shifting sand. The wind picked up, pelting her exposed skin with tiny grains that stung like needles. The storm was moving faster than she'd anticipated, the roar of it growing louder with each passing second. The rock formation grew closer, revealing itself to be a jagged outcropping with several dark crevices, potential shelters from the approaching maelstrom. Nera pushed herself harder, her lungs screaming for relief as the first powerful gusts of the storm reached her, nearly knocking her off her feet. With a final burst of desperate energy, she reached the rocks and dove into the largest opening she could see. The narrow entrance widened into what appeared to be a small cave. Nera collapsed onto her hands and knees, gasping for breath as the storm howled outside, completely obscuring the entrance with a wall of swirling sand. Safe, she whispered, allowing herself a moment of relief. For now, as her breathing steadied, Nera became aware of something unusual, a faint flickering light deeper within the cave, and with it the unmistakable scent of burning wood. She wasn't alone. Clutching her staff defensively, Nera rose to her feet and cautiously moved deeper into the cave. The passage twisted and turned, the dancing light growing stronger with each step. Strange shadows played across the stone walls, and as she rounded a final bend, she froze. A figure sat beside a small fire, cloaked in a worn pale mantle with a deep hood the color of desert sand. The figure was completely still, facing away from her. Seemingly unaware of her presence, Nera hesitated, weighing her options. The storm outside left her no choice but to seek shelter here. But who or what was this mysterious being? Friend or foe? Another refugee like herself, or something more sinister? Before she could decide whether to announce herself or retreat, the figure spoke without turning. The storm drove you here, I presume. The voice was deep, resonant, unmistakably male. You're welcome to share my fire until it passes. Nera's grip tightened on her staff. How did you know I was here? I heard you breathing. The figure turned slowly, lifting his head. The hood fell back slightly, revealing a face that made Nera's heart stop. Warm brown eyes regarded her with calm curiosity from a weathered face. Matana, not the face of any species she recognized. No scales, no fur, no bioluminescent markings, just smooth skin the color of burnished copper, with strange soft-looking hair above the eyes and in covering the lower portion of the face. You're human, she whispered, the words escaping before she could stop them. The man's eyes widened slightly. And you know of my kind? He gestured to the space across the fire. Please sit, the storm will last for hours yet. Nera remained frozen, her mind racing. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that they had vanished from the galaxy millennia ago, leaving behind only ruins and legends. Yet here one sat alive and breathing, regarding her with those strangely expressive eyes. Don't be afraid, he said softly, his deep voice somehow reassuring despite her shock. I won't harm you. Something in his tone, in the slight sadness that tinged his words, made Nera believe him. Cautiously she approached and sat across from him, keeping her staff within easy reach. My name is Nera, she offered, studying him openly. Now of the Alari people. Alari, he repeated as if testing the word. I've not heard of your kind before. He inclined his head slightly. I am Daniel, last survivor of the human research outpost on this world. Oh. Last survivor, Nera echoed. Then there were others. A shadow passed over Daniel's face. Once not anymore. The crackling of the fire filled the silence between them as Nera absorbed this information. A living, breathing human. The implications were staggering. You said you know of humans, Daniel prompted after a moment. How we've been gone from the galactic stage for a very long time. Nera hesitated, then decided truth was her best option. Everyone knows of humans. Your species is a legendary. The warriors who challenged the Dominion, who fought impossible odds and vanished into myth, but you're supposed to be extinct. Daniel's lips curved into a slight smile. Yeah, reports of our extinction have been exaggerated. Outside, the storm howled with renewed fury, but within the cave Nera felt the first stirrings of something she hadn't expected to feel again after watching her world burn. Hope as the storm raged. Outside, Nera found herself studying Daniel's features with growing fascination. There was something strangely appealing about his alien appearance, the warm brown of his eyes, the strong line of his jaw beneath a short beard, the expressive way his face moved when he spoke. Your world, Daniel said, breaking the silence. Tell me what happened. Nera's grip tightened on her staff as a memories flooded back. The screams, the fires, the merciless efficiency of the invaders. They came without warning. She began, her voice barely audible above the howling wind. The KAC, their ships darkened our skies like a plague of locusts. Daniel's posture changed instantly, his body tensing. The KAC. You're certain? Yes, Nero replied, surprised by his reaction. Six-limbed warriors with exoskeletons like burnished metal. They use some kind of energy weapons. That she faltered, the memory too painful, that disintegrate organic matter on contact. Daniel finished for her, his voice hard, leaving only ash behind. Nera stared at him. You know them. They're the reason humans are extinct, Daniel said bitterly. 3,000 years ago they nearly wiped us out. We fought back with everything we had, but in the end, he shook his head, those of us who survived went into hiding, deep hiding. But why target your species? Why mine? Daniel rose to his feet, pacing the small confines of the cave. The Kravok believed themselves to be the only species worthy of evolution. Any race that shows potential to challenge them is systematically eliminated. Nera felt a chill run through her that had nothing to do with the cave's temperature. My people were peaceful. We had no weapons, no defenses. But you had potential, Daniel said, stopping to look at her. Your staff, may I? Hesitantly, Nera handed over her ancestral staff. Daniel examined it with expert eyes, running his fingers over the intricate patterns etched into its surface. Remarkable, he murmured. This is a focusing device for psychic energy, isn't it? Your people are telepaths. How could you possibly know that? Nera asked, stunned. Instead of answering, Daniel walked to the back of the cave and pressed his palm against what appeared to be solid rock. To Nera's amazement, a seam appeared in the stone, widening into a doorway that revealed a softly lit passage beyond. I think it's time I showed you the truth, he said, extending his hand to her. There's more to this cave than meets the eye. Nera hesitated only briefly before placing her blue hand in his. His skin was warmer than hers, the touch sending an unexpected tingle up her arm. She followed him through the doorway into a sloping corridor that descended deep beneath the desert's surface. What is this place? She asked as they passed panels of softly glowing light embedded in the walls. Outpost 7, Daniel replied, one of 23 human monitoring stations scattered throughout the galaxy. We've been watching, waiting, gathering intelligence on the Kravok and other threats. The corridor opened into a vast chamber filled with technology beyond anything NRA had ever seen. Holographic displays showed star systems, data streams, and surveillance footage from what appeared to be dozens of worlds for 3 millennia. Daniel continued, we've remained hidden, rebuilding our strength, developing technologies that could one day help us reclaim our place in the galaxy. He turned to face her, his expression grave. And now the Kbak are active again after centuries of dormancy. Nera moved closer to one of the displays, recognizing with a jolt the lush landscapes of her home world, now reduced to smoking ruins. You were watching my planet. We monitor all worlds with species that show particular promise, Daniel admitted. Your people's psychic abilities made you of special interest. We had hoped to make contact eventually, but the Kvack moved faster than we anticipated. Nera turned to him, anger flaring. You knew they might come and you did nothing. We couldn't, Daniel said, regret evident in his voice. Direct intervention would have revealed our existence the moment the Kvack detected human technology. They would have traced it back to our hidden colonies. He stepped closer, his eyes intense. I'm sorry, Nera, truly, but if humanity is to survive, if we're ever going to be strong enough to defeat them, we must remain ghosts. The logic was cold, but Nera couldn't deny it made a certain sense. Still, the thought of her people dying while humans watch from the shadows. How many of you are there? she asked, changing the subject. Here, just me now, the others. Daniel's expression darkened. There was an accident, a containment breach in the power core. I'm the only survivor. Nera felt a surge of empathy. They were both alone, both survivors of catastrophe. Without thinking, she reached out, placing her hand on his arm. I'm sorry. Daniel looked down at her hand, then met her gaze. Something passed between them, a recognition perhaps of shared loss and isolation. The air in the chamber seemed to grow warmer. You're the first person I've spoken to in over 2 years, he said softly, and you're the first human I've ever met, she replied, suddenly very aware of how close they were standing. I always thought your kind were just legends. His lips curved into a smile that transformed his face, making him look younger, less burdened. And what did the legend say about us? That you were fierce warriors, Nera said, not stepping away. Brilliant inventors. That you loved and fought with equal passion. And is the reality disappointing? There was a playful note in his voice now. No, Nera admitted, feeling a flush spread across her blue cheeks. Not disappointing at all. Daniel's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes, as a question in his expression. The monitoring station, the storm, the clock, all seemed to fade into the background as something new and unexpected sparked between them. I should show you where you can rest, Daniel said, his voice rougher than before. The storm will last through the night. Yes, Nera agreed, though neither of them moved immediately. That would be wise. Daniel led Nera through a series of corridors, each lined with technology that hummed with quiet efficiency. He pointed out various sections of the facility: living quarters, medical bay, communication center. Speaking with the practiced ease of a tour guide, though his eyes kept returning to her with an intensity that made her skin tingle. And this, he said, stopping before a circular chamber filled with holographic displays, is the analysis lab. Nera stepped inside, drawn to a central platform. What do you analyze here? Artifacts, technology, anything that might help us understand our enemies or potential allies. Daniel's gaze fell on her staff. May I? When she handed it to him, their fingers brushed, sending an electric sensation up her arm. Daniel seemed to feel it too, his breath catching slightly before he composed himself. I've always wondered about this, Nera said, watching as he placed the staff on the platform. It's been passed down through generations of my family, but its full purpose remains a mystery. We know it amplifies our natural abilities, but a sharp alarm cut through the air, red lights pulsing along the ceiling. Daniel's expression hardened instantly as he rushed to a nearby console. Proximity alert, he said, fingers flying across the controls. Something's entered the atmosphere. Holographic screens materialized around them, showing a small craft descending through the planet's upper atmosphere, its design unmistakable even to Nera. Kvack scout ship, she whispered, her blood running cold. They must have followed your portal signature, Daniel said, his voice tight. The storm might have masked your trail temporarily, but they're persistent hunters. What do? We prepare. Daniel activated another console. This outpost has defenses, but they're designed for concealment, not direct confrontation. If they discover us, the unspoken implication hung heavy in the air. They both knew what the Kravik did to their enemies. Wait, Daniel said, suddenly his attention returning to her staff. The platform beneath it had begun to glow, lines of light tracing the intricate patterns etched into the ancient artifact. That's unexpected. What is it? Your staff. It's interfacing with our systems. Daniel's eyes widened as data streamed across the nearest display. The technology, it's compatible, more than compatible. It's responding to our security protocols as if it were designed to. Nera moved closer, watching in fascination as the staff pulsed with inner light. How is that possible? I'm not sure, but Daniel's voice trailed off as he studied the scrolling information. These symbols, they're similar to an ancient human script and the energy signature. He looked up at her, wondering, his eyes. Nera, I think our civilizations share a common ancestor. Before she could process this revelation, the alarm changed pitch, becoming more urgent. They've landed, Daniel said grimly. About 3 miles from here. The storm will slow them down, but they will be methodical, thorough. He moved quickly to another section of the lab, retrieving what looked like weapons from a concealed compartment. We need to activate the outpost's full defensive capabilities. Your staff might be the key. Nera took a deep breath, studying herself. Tell me what to do. The staff seems to be responding to your bio-YTHMS. If you can focus your energy through it like you would for your telepathic abilities, we might be able to unlock dormant functions in both the staff and our systems. Nera nodded, taking back the staff as her fingers closed around it. She felt a familiar warmth, but stronger now, as if the contact with human technology had awakened something within it. She closed her eyes, concentrating on channeling her energy. She'd been taught since childhood. The staff grew hot in her hands, vibrating with power around them. The facility systems responded Displays flickering with new information, previously dark sections illuminating. It's working, Daniel breathed, watching. As defense schematics appeared on the main screen, you're unlocking protocols I didn't even know existed. When Nera opened her eyes, she found Daniel staring at her with undisguised admiration that was incredible, their gazes locked and in that moment, with danger approaching and ancient mysteries unfolding around them, something shifted between them. The attraction that had been simmering beneath the surface flared into something more urgent, more primal. Daniel moved closer, his hand coming up to brush a strand of silvery hair from her face. You're remarkable, he said softly. Nera leaned into his touch, her blue skin contrasting with his 10 fingers. So are you. The alarm continued its rhythmic warning, but neither moved away. In this moment of crisis, with death potentially hours away, the connection between them felt like the most natural thing in the universe. In my culture, Nero whispered, we believe that souls recognize each other across lifetimes, across species. And what does your soul recognize in me? Daniel asked, his voice husky, a kindred spirit, a warrior. Someone who understands loss. She placed her free hand against his chest, feeling his heart race beneath her palm. Someone I trust. Daniel's eyes darkened with desire. Nero, if these are to be our last hours, then let's make them count. She finished for him. Their lips met in a kiss that transcended species and time. Tender at first, then growing in intensity as millennia of separation between their kinds melted away. The staff fell forgotten to the floor as Nera's arms wound around Daniel's neck, his hands pulling her closer against him. They moved together toward the living quarters, the red warning lights casting an otherworldly glow across their skin. For this moment, the approaching danger only heightened the urgency of their connection, making each touch, each kiss, each hush, shared breath feel like a defiant celebration of life in the face of extinction. Dawn found them entwined in each other's arms, a tangle of copper and blue limbs against the stark white of Daniel's sleeping quarters. Nera awoke, first momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar surroundings before memories of the night flooded back. She turned to study Daniel's sleeping face, marveling at how peaceful he looked. The lines of worry temporarily smoothed away. The night had been a revelation in more ways than one. The differences in their physiologies had led to moments of awkward humor and whispered guidance, but they'd found their rhythm together, discovering that despite evolving on different worlds, some things were truly universal. The insistent beeping of a monitor pulled her from her reverie. Daniel's eyes snapped open, instantly alert. The scouts, well, he said, sitting up. How long was I asleep? A few hours, Nera replied, reaching for her golden outfit. The alarm changed tone. Daniel was already at a terminal pulling up surveillance data. They're getting closer. The storm has died down enough for them to make progress. He turned to her, his expression determined. We need to move quickly. They dressed efficiently, the intimacy of the night giving way to the urgency of survival as Daniel led her back to the command center. Nera couldn't help but notice how their dynamic had shifted. There was an ease between them now, a wordless understanding. I have a plan, Daniel said as they entered the main chamber. 2 plans actually. He activated a holographic display showing the surrounding desert. 6 red dots moved steadily toward their location. First, we use the outpost defensive systems to eliminate the scouts before they can report our position. He manipulated the display, highlighting various points around the facility. Your staff activated dormant security protocols, automated weapon emplacements buried beneath the sand. If we can lure the Kravok into this valley, he indicated a narrow passage between dunes, we can trigger a crossfire. They won't escape. Nera studied the tactical display, and if that fails, Daniel's expression turned grim. That's where Plan 2 comes in. He switched the display to show a different section of the facility, a hangar bay containing a sleek vessel unlike any Nera had seen before. The Pathfinder, Daniel explained, a long-range scout ship with stealth capabilities. It's small, but it can reach interstellar speeds. You're suggesting we run? NRA said, not as an accusation but as a statement of fact if necessary. Daniel acknowledged the outpost's self-destruct would ensure the Kvak find nothing of value here. We could reach a human colony in the Cygnus sector within 3 days. Nera's fingers traced the outline of the ship on the display and abandon any other worlds in the Kravok path. Daniel's eyes met hers, understanding her concern. Not necessarily. The Pathfinder carries advanced communication equipment. Emokim. We could send warnings to potential targets, alert them to evacuate before the Kravok arrive, like my world should have been warned, Nera said softly. Daniel took her hand, his touch gentle. I can't change what happened to your people, Nera, but I can help you prevent it from happening to others. The sincerity in his voice touched something deep within her. In the short time they'd known each other, this human had shown Her more compassion and understanding than she thought possible from a species of legendary warriors. Let's try the trap first, she decided. I want to hurt them for what they did to my world. Daniel nodded, a fierce smile crossing his face. I was hoping you'd say that they spent the next hour preparing. Daniel programmed the weapon in placements while Nera used her staff to create a false energy signature that would draw the kbak to the trap working. Together they moved with surprising efficiency, anticipating each other's needs without having to ask. You know, Nera said as she calibrated her staff, on my world there's a belief that when two souls join physically they create a temporary bond, a heightened awareness of each other. Daniel glanced up from his console, a playful light in his eyes. Is that why? I can almost guess what you're thinking. Perhaps, she replied with a smile, or perhaps humans and Alari are more alike than either of us realized. Speaking of similarities, Daniel said, there's something I've been meaning to ask. Last night when he paused, searching for words when we made it, Ness supplied, amused by his sudden awkwardness. Yeah, that. Daniel cleared his throat. You mentioned a ritual from your world, something about binding stars. Nera felt her cheeks warm with a deeper blue flush. The binding of stars is an eerie tradition. When two people choose each other as life partners, they perform a ceremony under the night sky, symbolically connecting their life forces like stars in a constellation. And you whispered those words during our. Daniel gestured vaguely. It was instinctive, Nera admitted. In moments of intense emotion we often invoke sacred phrases. I didn't mean to imply I liked it. Daniel interrupted, his expression softening. It was beautiful. Before Nera could respond, an alert sounded from the console. Daniel's attention snapped back to the display. They're entering the valley or not, he said, tension returning to his voice. It's time. Nera took her position at the secondary console, staff in hand. Through the surveillance feed they watched as 6 Kravik scouts move through the narrow passage, their armored exoskeletons glinting in the morning sun. Each carried weapons that Nero recognized all too well, the disintegration rifles that had turned her people to ash. On my mark, Daniel said, fingers poised over the activation sequence. 3, 2, 1 now channeled energy through her staff, creating a pulse that mimicked a powerful energy source, irresistible bait for the Kravik. Simultaneously, Daniel triggered the buried weapon in placements. The valley erupted in a coordinated barrage of energy blasts. The Kravik scouts caught in the crossfire had no time to react. 5 of them fell immediately, their armored bodies crumpling under the precision strikes, but the 6th, slightly behind the others, managed to dive behind a rock formation. They watched as it activated a communication device on its arm. It's sending a transmission, Daniel said, fingers flying across the console as he attempted to jam the signal. Too late, the message got through. Their eyes met across the command center, both knowing what this meant. How long? Nir asked. Before reinforcements arrive, hours, maybe less. Daniel's jaw set in determination. Looks like we're going with plan 2 after all. Initiate self-destruct sequence, Daniel commanded, his fingers flying across the control panel. Authorization Phoenix 7. Delta 9 self-destruct sequence initiated, responded the outpost to his computer. Time to detonation 15 minutes. Nera gathered the few supplies they'd need for their journey: emergency rations, medical supplies, and most importantly her staff. The hangar is 3 levels down, correct? Daniel nodded, slinging a pack over his shoulder and checking the energy pistol at his hip. We'll take the maintenance shaft, it's faster than the main quarters. They moved swiftly through the facility, the countdown to destruction adding urgency to their steps. The Pathfinder awaited them, their ticket to safety and their chance to warn others about the Kvak threat. What's that? Nera stopped, suddenly tilting her head. Did you hear something? Daniel froze, listening intently. A faint scraping sound echoed through the corridor, metal against metal. Deliberate and slow, the scout, he whispered, drawing his weapon. It must have survived and found a way in. Nera gripped her staff tighter, feeling the energy pulse through it in response to her rising adrenaline. How? The outer doors are sealed, maintenance ducts, probably the same ones we're heading for. Daniel's expression darkened. These things are persistent, and now it's between us and our escape route. They pressed themselves against the wall, advancing cautiously toward the junction where the sound had originated. Daniel signaled for Nera to stay behind him, but she moved to his side instead, staff at the ready. I'm not helpless, she whispered, a fierce determination in her eyes. Daniel's lips quirked into a brief smile. I'm starting to see that. The scraping grew louder as they approached the junction. Daniel peered around the corner, then quickly pulled back. It's there, he confirmed, wounded but still dangerous, and it's directly in our path to the hangar. Self-destruct in 12 minutes, the computer announced calmly. Nera took a deep breath, centering herself as she'd been taught. I have an idea. My staff, when I channel energy through it, I can create a pulse that might disorient it long enough for us to attack. Daniel considered this. Kvak Sensory systems are highly evolved, especially for detecting energy signatures a sudden surge might overload them temporarily. Exactly. Nera closed her eyes, focusing her energy. The staff began to glow with an inner light pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. On my signal, we moved. Daniel readied his weapon, his body tense like a coiled spring. Their eyes met for a brief moment, a silent acknowledgement of the danger and something more. In the short time they'd known each other, they'd formed a connection that transcended their different origins. Now thrust her staff forward, sending a blinding pulse of energy around the corner. A high-pitched screech told them the plan had worked. They rounded the corner to find the Krobak scout thrashing its sensory appendages, retracting in pain, but even disoriented it was deadly. One armored limb swung wildly, catching Daniel across the chest and sending him crashing into the wall. Nera didn't hesitate. She brought her staff down hard on the creature's central nerve cluster, a vulnerability she'd learned about during the invasion of her world. The Krobag staggered but didn't fall. Daniel recovered quickly, firing his energy pistol at the scout's damaged leg joint. The creature stumbled, giving Nera an opening to strike again with her staff, this time targeting the breathing apparatus at the base of its neck. The Krobak let out a gurgling sound, green fluid leaking from the damaged respirator. It lunged at Nera with surprising speed, metal claws extended. She ducked, but not quite fast enough. One claw grazed her shoulder, tearing through her golden outfit and drawing a line of iridescent blue blood. Daniel roared with fury, throwing himself at the creature. With reckless abandon they crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs, human and alien. Nera watched in amazement as Daniel fought with a primal intensity she hadn't expected from his usually calm demeanor. The neck joint, she called out, spotting a weakness in the Krobaka's armor where her earlier blow had loosened a plate. Daniel didn't hesitate. He jammed his pistol into the exposed gap and fired. The Krobak convulsed once, then went still. Self-destruct in 8 minutes, the computer reminded them. Daniel rose shakily to his feet, breathing hard. His eyes immediately went to Nera's wounded shoulder. You're hurt. It's superficial, she assured him, though the cut stung fiercely. We need to move. They navigated around the fallen Krobak and hurried toward the maintenance shaft. As they climbed down to the hangar level, Nera couldn't help but marvel at what she just witnessed. You fought differently than I expected, she said. As they reached the bottom, Daniel glanced at her, a questioning look in his eyes. The legends speak of humans as tactical fighters using technology and strategy, Nera explained, but you fought with such passion, such raw intensity. A wry smile crossed Daniel's face. Humans are complicated. We can be logical, strategic, civilized, but threaten someone we care about and something more primal takes over. His eyes lingered on her injured shoulder. When I saw it hurt you, I wasn't thinking tactically anymore. The implication of his words sent a warm flutter through Nera's chest. Despite the danger, despite the countdown to destruction ticking away, she felt a surge of emotion that momentarily overwhelmed her. In my culture, she said softly, protecting one's mate is the highest expression of devotion. Daniel's eyes darkened with an intensity that had nothing to do with combat. Is that what we are, mates, after last night? Nera replied, a deeper blue flush spreading across her cheeks. And after what just happened, what would you call it? Before Daniel could answer, they reached the hangar doors. The sleek form of the Pathfinder waited beyond their salvation and their future. Self-destruct in 5 minutes, the computer announced. We'll continue this conversation once we're safely away, Daniel promised, his hand lingering on hers for a moment before he turned to the access panel. The door slid open, revealing the Pathfinder in all its glory, and standing between them in the ship, 2 more Krobak scouts, weapons raised and ready. Don't move, Daniel whispered, pulling Nera back from the doorway before the Krobak could spot them. His mind raced, calculating options. As the self-destruct countdown continued its merciless progression, self-destruct in 4 minutes 30 seconds. Nera's eyes were wide but determined. What do we do? Daniel peered around the edge of the doorway, assessing the situation. The 2